is Stevie Rochelle from Tough and Metal Sledge.
Hey everybody, this is Pat Torpy from Mr. Big.
This is Glenn Hughes, the voice of rock. What's up? This is Dave Rude from Tesla.
And you're listening to Music Mania.
Music Mania. You are locked and loaded on the Music Mania podcast.
Thank you so much, man. I love talking about the things that I love, Clint, and for you to allow me to do it with you, I am the Music Mania podcaster.
You wanted the best! You got the best!
We roll tonight to the guitar bite, and for those about to rock, I salute you.
You ready for some screaming heavy metal? Scream for me, Brazil! Scream for me, Brazil! We rock!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, brought to you by CD Warehouse in Gladstone, the #1 hard rock podcast in the Midwest, featuring hard-hitting interviews with rock's living legends. And now, here's your host, Clint Schweitzer.
I know most people are spending most of the quarantine in the Quarantine Beer Chugs Facebook group, but if we may provide just a little bit of a welcome distraction for that here on the Music Mania podcast, it would sure make our day. We hope everybody is staying safe and healthy out there. It is our pleasure to continue bringing you top-notch interviews here on the Music Mania podcast. It's our pleasure this week to bring to you an interview with Stewart Copeland from The Police. We're going to be talking about the band's 07-08 reunion tour, one of the top-grossing tours of all time. It averaged 23,000 fans per night. Over $2.5 million in revenue that brought in. So there's so much to talk about with Stewart. Of course, if you know anything about Stewart Copeland, you know that he is not only one of the great drummers in rock history, in fact, voted the 10th greatest of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. They say about Stewart, it may be Sting's melodies that have become ubiquitous, but The Police sounds the way they do because of Stewart Copeland's use of space, subtlety, and aggression. And that is absolutely the case. We're going to get into that reunion tour with Stewart. He's someone that, if you don't know, kind of tells it like it is when it comes to his bandmates, Andy Summers and Sting and The Police. He often refers to Sting as the effing bass player. And so Stewart, you know, he's a guy that is still working so hard. He's working on, he does work with orchestras. He does work with video games, the music arrangements for symphonies and such. He has a band called Oysterhead with Les Claypool. They just actually postponed their date, which was supposed to be at the Greek Theater, and it's been postponed. So obviously, so much uncertainty going on right now. Stewart Copeland definitely remaining busy in his home studio. The guy does so much, composing music for video games such as Spyro the Dragon, many movies over the years, including Rumblefish. But he also has a new project, Stewart Copeland Police Deranged for Orchestra, and it is a higher-energy orchestral evening celebrating the work of the legendary Police, and that's going to be coming out this fall, hopefully, as obviously so much uncertainty. As you look at the dates, they've got a date in Seattle, Vancouver, Nashville, and Atlanta starting in September 30th in Seattle. So definitely hoping that comes to fruition. You guys are going to enjoy this conversation. I had a little bit of audio issues with Stewart. We had him really good in our mix to start with, but he couldn't hear us, so we kept having to call back and didn't want to waste a lot of his time. So the interview, the audio is what it is, but it was just a pleasure and an honor to have Stewart on the show. I mean, he's absolutely one of the great drummers in rock history. I mean, The Police, just absolutely legendary, and he's done so much since then. So we're going to get into all that with him and some Facebook fan questions. Stewart has a sense of humor, man. He tells it like it is, and you're going to absolutely love it. So much more coming up on the Music Mania podcast. I am backlogged with interviews, so I guess if there's anything positive to take from this is that musicians are at home. They're still working on music. Not able to tour right now, but they do have more time for interviews, and we're able to bring you a lot more interviews here on the podcast. So some great things coming up. Got Gus G, formerly of Ozzy Osbourne's band, and Firewind here coming up. Going to be doing an interview with guitarist Mitch Perry, a legendary guitarist who's played with so many acts from Aerosmith to Michael Schenker and Eric Martin from Mr. Big. All that is going to be coming up and much more. So a lot of excitement for us as we just, really using this time to connect with as many musicians as we can and kind of find out what they're up to during this, how they're handling it, and sort of the effect it has, on these particular musicians. So Stewart Copeland's a guy that I actually got this idea from Chris Jericho's podcast. Chris Jericho talked about how sometimes it's so hard to get a guest and sometimes it's so easy. He said with one email to a publicist, he got this interview lined up with Stewart Copeland. This was back in 2015. So that gave me an idea. I was like, if it's just as easy as one publicist and Stewart Copeland so open to doing interviews, why not? And so I floated out an email the next morning. The publicist is getting it set up. We had a date. We had it happen. So big thanks to them. That was as easy as it gets. And Stewart, one of the absolutely most, respected drummers in rock history, and the Police, just a legendary band, an iconic band in so many ways. So we're going to get into all that stuff with him coming up. Stewart, I tell you, it's a pleasure to have you here. And like I was saying, it's during this crazy time with any other artist, I feel like, hey, a lot of them are kind of home and they're not a lot to do. But with you, I feel like you're probably as productive during times like this than anyone. How's everything been going for you?
Well, I am sad by all of the suffering out there in the world, but just selfishly, I'm personally enjoying the Holocaust, the apocalypse, rather. Two of my girls are home, and there's four of us in the house. None of us have been out of our front door in 2 weeks. We watch the same television shows, we hang out and have dinner. A couple things that I think all the science fiction writers completely missed when imagining what the apocalypse would be. One of them is how cozy it is. And the other, of course, is the toilet paper thing. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that is not a part of any vision of the apocalypse that has ever been filmed.
I'll have to check L. Ron Hubbard's, some of his work, but that's not in my version of this, certainly. But you've of course been affected. You had an Oysterhead show postponed. There's a lot of uncertainty, so obviously some of your live appearances and stuff get kind of pushed to the back burner. But that goes for everyone. That goes for every artist right now. So it's all kind of a give and take. We just kind of have to wait and see, I guess. Here.
Yeah, we pushed some dates back. It's a strange thing when you look at the. When I played those Oysterhead shows, I had a raging flu of some kind, and I'd had all my flu jabs, and usually when you read symptoms of leprosy, you're thinking, oh my God, I've got leprosy, that's it, oh my God, and you're oh no, every symptom that rings true is a jolt of fear. And this time, reading about symptoms of the coronavirus, I'm thinking, I hope I had it. I hope that was it.
Yeah.
Because then it's, as they say, resolved. But, we're making light of it here, as I guess we all have to do. But it is really, a problem for humanity. And we have to just keep that in our minds as we enjoy the vast amount of humor that is being generated by this apocalypse.
Well, you of all people, thank goodness for people like you, one of the best sense of humors in the game for sure. But there's some unfortunate aspects. Obviously, we know that, but I was just been so excited to see and kind of how you're going to unveil. And I know you've been working on this a long time. I want to talk about kind of the genesis of the Stewart Copeland Police Deranged for Orchestra. Obviously, you've worked with symphonies. You've been constructing music your whole life. Talk about kind of the genesis of this project. Obviously, you have dates still planned coming up in the future, but a lot of people are so excited about this. Just talk about the kind of the genesis of this project, and hope we get to see more of it.
Well, there are two different strands that led to this place. One is the derangements, which are a phase that I went through, decades ago, where I discovered that A&M have the multi-tracks of all of our sessions, all of our records. They've got the multi-track in Pro Tools of Roxanne, Can't Stand Losing You, Message in a Bottle. And I can't remember what the mission was, but for some reason I tried cutting them up and taking the verse of this song and putting it over the bass line of that song, and that little bit of Andy guitar solo that never made it onto the record, but was actually a really cool lick. We just didn't go down that road. But I found it, and I made these mosh-ups of the Police track, which I called Deranged. And I've made 3 of them. And I went over to Sting's place in Malibu, took him out of my car and played with him. He said, oh, great. You know, he's actually very broad-minded about exploitation of his songs. He loves it when people do his songs, whatever version it is they do. It makes him feel like, you know, Rodgers and Hammerstein or something. You know, he likes it when the song has a life of its own. Even if the version may be an abomination, never mind, his song will live. So he was very supportive. And then I brought Andy over for one afternoon, and he did some stuff, and it was all very. And then I blew it. I got selfish, creatively selfish. And I just homed it, and I did like 8 or 9 tracks. Just having a way, I forgot to call Andy. And I just by myself had a hell of a time just carving up these tracks and finding cool things. You know, and a lot of live stuff as well. When we would jam on Roxanne, there was a section where we used to just like take off. And Sting did some amazing vocalization and interesting new bass lines. So I got all that stuff and kind of used it all. And I made these tracks. And at that point, I sent them to my 2 colleagues, and they said, what are you smoking? Are you thinking it's okay for you to take the 5 tracks, fuck them up, and, you know, are you kidding me? You know, and it was like, oh, gosh. And then with blinding clarity, I could see their point of view. You know, one member of the band takes the stuff off in his own laboratory, lobotomizes it all, you know, to his own liking. Yeah, I can understand the hesitation of my colleagues. Anyhow, went into the cookie jar, on the shelf, forgotten. Then I made my little Super 8 movie, which fortunately stars Andy Summers, because back in the day when I had my Super 8 camera, Andy was always game for a laugh, and Andy performed for the candy, and I got really great comedic material with him. Sting just smolders on the corner of the shot. All he has to do is just sit there, and he burns up the frame, you know. And so I made this little movie of all my Super 8 footage, which played at Sundance and, you know, showed on Showtime and had a life of its own. And this time, since Andy was so handsome in the movie, he looked more kindly when I said, hey, remember those derangements? How about if I used them as the score for the movie? And so they all said yes. So those lobotomies that I did appear as the score for the police movie that I made called Everyone Spares. That's one side. That's the derangement part.
Yep.
The other part is 20 years before the mass as a film composer, which involves working with orchestras. And the orchestra is a really useful tool, very complicated tool in film composing. It just sounds like a movie when you've got a big bad orchestra swaying and heaving and pumping and blasting. And I learned how to compose and orchestrate for orchestra, which took me into opera and concerts, and I've been playing drums with orcs for quite some time now. And normally I play with the Colorado Symphony or the Pittsburgh or whatever, and I play my concerto for Stu Daddy and Orcs. Well, actually, it's got a fancy name, Tyrant's Crush. And it's a fun thing that I do, and I play alongside Sibelius, Ravel, Stravinsky, whatever, and that makes me feel like an actual musician. Very dignified. And I only play for 30 minutes, and the rest of the program is the great orchestral classical music classic, you know. Pretty stiff competition on the bill, but never mind. Then my manager said, hey, look, let's try something else. How about you go out and play music that people have actually heard of, like your film scores, Equalizer, Rumblefish, Wall Street, whatever. Okay, so I orchestrated those, and I did a tour of those in Germany and England, which was really a lot of fun. Then my manager, Flinty, I managed to twist my arm behind my back a little bit more. Okay, you want to play Italy Festival? You want to play Blood and Palace Summer Festival? Now, these things are outside pop music. They're kind of pop orchestra events. Beautiful April summer's evening. And there's an orchestra playing, you know, Elton John hits or ABBA or whatever.
Yeah.
It ain't classical music, but it's a big bad orchestra, and it's just a fun thing. So how about you play some action? Oh, songs are big, but they weren't the big ones. They were the ones that I were, which were the not big ones. And he said, play the message in the bottle, rock and whatever. Okay, then you point out those orchestral arrangements of the lobotomies that I did in the police track.
Well, it's tremendous stuff, a lot going into it, and hopefully we get to see this live in Europe and then in America this fall, so we're going to be looking for that. So, Stewart, would this be a good time? It's been a year or so since we've seen content from your Sacred Grove YouTube channel. Might we see something come of that? It's been too long.
Well, it's kind of tough to do with social distancing.
True.
I've got a couple of sessions in the can, but right now I'm busy doing these rearrangements.
Sure.
Taking these songs and taking Andy's guitar solos and figuring out how to do that on an oboe. Actually, no, I've got four saxophones as well to keep it raising. You know, that they have a lot more grizzle, a lot more aggression for this kind of music. You know, those three guys are those two guys are pretty much irreplaceable. But the closest I can get is 3 African American ladies on the vocals and 50 orcs for Andy Summers.
I love it. Speaking of those 3 guys, I keep going back to this because I'm so enthralled by the business that you guys did on the 07-08 reunion tour. 3.7 million tickets, grossed $358 million, which I'm sure you're sitting on most of right now. The 3rd highest grossing tour of all time. Stewart, this is insane. Kind of just take us back. Good memories, fond memories of 07-08?
Well, it was, big picture, a really great thing. There was kind of, we broke up at a really good time, very abruptly, leaving kind of, it felt like unfinished business. And when we did the reunion tour, it really took care of all that unfinished business. We really got a grip on what it was that we had done. And, you know, for some of us, we could regard the whole police experience as not so much of a stain on our history, that actually there was some good in it. When we walk out on stage, there's 80,000 people lit up by these old songs. That gets your attention and makes you feel that maybe playing this material isn't a terrible, reprehensible step backwards, but there's actually value to this, validated by the people out there. And all the problems that we had, which caused us to break up in the first place, the tensions we had, we were able to understand the true motivations, feelings, and causes of those tensions. And so we were able to deal with it. And fundamentally, we are not birds of a feather. When we were young, we were codependent, and we actually sparked each other into places that we never would have gone, you know, because it was out of our comfort zone. But now, we're all grown up and comfortable, and we have found our groove. Each of us has found what it is that we love to do, and it isn't necessarily taking instruction from the fucking bass player.
Well,
and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that instruction. In fact, that bass player, that fucking bass player, Preston, does actually know a thing or two about how to use the drum set. And what made it more, in fact, the most unbearable feature of this instruction from the bass player was that most of it was pretty good instruction, which means that I have to kill the son of a bitch. Now, the problem is, every day I would do my best to try and listen to the guy who wrote these songs, has great ideas. I live to serve. I am nothing, I am no one. So, I get on the drums, and shit just happens. I forget. What did we decide about this there? I forget. I'm playing. And it's sort of a force of nature. That's what I enjoy about playing drums. I forget. My brain isn't working. It's just my body is working. My brain is on fire with unintelligible, rage and inactivity. In any arrangement conversation, there's a dim idea of how the song goes, but everything else is just coming up on top. Me, I love all that. If you're trying to sing a song with really clever lyrics that you wrote and actually mean something to you, it's kind of a problem if you've got World War III going on over behind your left shoulder. And so, with great love and mutual admiration, we realize we're not exactly a perfect fit. But our love endures.
That's absolutely, and it sounds like two of the last three relationships that I had personally, Stewart, and that was my indoctrination to the police. I'm 35. I got to see the police in '07 at the Sprint Center, brand new building in Kansas City, and it was a tremendous indoctrination for me. But before we let you go, here we have a few rapid fire questions. There's a Stewart Copeland Facebook group, and it's bigger than the police Facebook group. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
Because
that's a living, breathing thing, and the police, the dead issue.
True. That's a good point.
It's a band. There are pictures of three blonde heads, but nothing new on there.
Well,
and Andy and Sting, I'm sure their sites are probably bigger too.
Well, I'll tell you. So this is one of those cases where we got some really good, just a few quick rapid fire questions for you as we end here. But this is one of those deals where we put the blame on the person asking the question and not me, the conduit. One question is, if there was a Spyro the Dragon movie, would you consider composing the music?
Oh, love Spyro.
Yeah.
I absolutely would kill to get that job. I will weep bitter tears if they call someone else. I would be surprised if they did, because when they rebuilt the game, they rebuilt the music. Ridiculous. Sample for sample, note for note.
Matthew Mamrick says, do you have a clip of the Wrigley's commercial that Tony Scott directed, or a clip from Real Time with Bill Mayer where he's schooling Jerry Falwell Jr.?
No. I don't think Ridley Scott, the Wrigley commercial, the director is known, and I think, and it disappeared without a trace. I was never seen. No. What was the second one?
Or the clip from Real Time with Bill Mayer where he's schooling Jerry Falwell Jr.
Schooling Jerry Falwell Jr.?
This was one that I didn't understand, so I thought maybe you would. So.
Hey, send me that link.
I know. That's what I was looking for it myself. I was like, there's got to be a link somewhere. So that one we'll just move on from because I didn't get that one either. Stephen Cowan says, any plans of unreleased police recordings or, this even more importantly, the excellent Around the World on Blu-ray coming out in the future?
Yes. Andy's on that. Getting the police around the world released one way or another.
I like this one. Davis Reed asked, with this being now your 6th decade in the music industry, during that time, what is one venture or collaboration or even moment that you cherish above all the rest?
That's very tough. There's so many. I love them all. Stanley Clarke, Jeff Beck, Les Claypool, Trey Anastasio. I guess Trey and Les. That is my favorite. Les Claypool and Trey Anastasio.
I love it. This one's kind of this one seems to be kind of in the vein of the Stewart Copeland kind of sense of humor. It says, why during the pandemic have you, Sting, and Andy not put on a concert for the fans? He says you could each play in your own houses and it would be just like the Synchronicity sessions where you played in different rooms.
Good question. I got a nice note from Stingo and Andy, and we are in touch with each other, just to make sure we're still here. I will not mention the location of the other two, but we're in touch with each other, and it would require, for me, I'm fine. My studio is all hired for my drums, and I'm looking at them right here. They're all mic'd up, plugged in. I got a template. I open up that template on DC. I got cameras around the room, because of my Sacred Grove sessions. I'm equipped. The other two guys will be engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. Last one here. Mark Halar says, if Sting sent you a tape with some song ideas, would you collaborate? And if the answer is yes, how would you do it differently?
Absolutely do that because I am, to this day, susceptible to his music. I went and saw The Last Ship, which is the Broadway musical version of his tunes, and I loved it. It amazed me that every singer on the stage, male, female, soprano, baritone, they all sounded like Sting. I've never separated his voice out from his melody, but take his voice away, and his tunes are still absolutely unmistakable. So I'd be there. How would we do it? I like the part about him sending it to him. I don't have to have him in the room when I ruin his track.
Wow, Stewart, I tell you, it's just we can't thank you enough for doing this with us. It's been a great distraction for our listeners, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. And I'll tell you, sorry we had to battle some audio issues here, but we power through as we often do, as an American race, and as we will forge into the future. Maybe this is the new normal for us, but if so, we will overcome. Will we not?
Yes, I guess so. Quite hear all that, but I gather a positive sentiment.
You gather correctly, my friend. Sorry about the audio issues. We'll have to catch up sometime down the road. Good luck with everything, and we will talk soon, my friend. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Best wish to all your folks.
Thank you. You as well. We were able to muscle through it there. We had some audio issues, but able to get the interview in. And for you guys, I mean, I tell you what, that was such an honor for me. Such a big fan of the Police. I was there on that 07 reunion tour at the Sprint Center when it came. And just, for a lot of people my age and really anyone since 1983 not being able to see the band live, it was definitely an exciting and really unforgettable experience to be able to be there and see the Police live. Just one of the great power trios in history. Of course, we talked about Stewart's playing, and he talked about, how he would be open to collaborating with Sting as long as he's not in the same room with him. Stewart tells it like it is. He's not gonna hold back, and he hasn't done it since the first day of the Police reunion tour, when I think he got into some hot water with management by making a comment to a member of the press, and it kind of got put out of control. And back then, before I believe there was no blabbermouth or anything like that, but that's Stewart. That's his personality. Great sense of humor. Great guy. Thanks so much for joining us here. We got so much more coming up here on the Music Mania podcast. Lining up, like I said, interviews with Eric Martin from Mr. Big coming up. Gus G, who is in Ozzy Osbourne's band. He's in the band Firewind. And we're also very excited to welcome back David Ellefson from Megadeth. He has a Schools Out initiative that we're going to talk about, a new single that's with the proceeds going to COVID-19 relief in Italy. So that's all coming up. So many big things here on the Music Mania podcast. We thank you guys so much for staying with us. We hope that you're being safe and healthy out there. We're going to get through this together. We're off into the spring and summer months, and hopefully for so many of us, that means at least being able to get outside and enjoy the weather and enjoy your friends. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be enjoying some live music very soon. We all need it. This has been tough on everyone, the artists included, so we are working to get back to our old level of normalcy, so let's make that happen. Thanks so much for joining us. You can subscribe to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. Any way you choose to take in the show, we always appreciate it. The website, musicmaniapodcast.com. All the shows are archived there, as well as my concert reviews. Back when there were concerts, I reviewed them, and they were on that website, musicmaniapodcast.com. Thanks so much. We will be back next week.